Hey everybody, Brian Boyle here, and welcome to episode 95 of the Mesh Tongue. It is Wednesday, and today's a good day, so hopefully you're having a good day. I see some friends in South Carolina, strike that, North Carolina and Georgia are in for some doozies of some storms, so hopefully you all are safe and stay inside. If you're out and need to get your workout in, I'd get back in and get your workout indoors. I've seen some pictures and stuff. It's some bad news. So don't mess around with that. Mother Nature generally wins. I've been stuck out in some hailstorms, and it is not a lot of fun, especially when you're ducking under somebody's porch or trying to hide underneath a tree or whatever. So hey, those questions, comments, appreciate those. Keep those coming in. Brian, Brian at company, the number 5k.com, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Wanted to give you a brief update on two things before I get into today's topic, which is metabolic syndrome. But the first one was the ketones and getting into ketosis. I'll tell you what, there's a couple different products out there. So I used the Keto OS Max. There's another one that I just saw, which is a little less expensive. I may try that. We'll see. We'll see where this ends up going. I may try to get into ketosis naturally. I don't know if I'm going to like that. I do enjoy my carbs. I'm not going to like maybe going into ketosis naturally. And everyone gets all crazy and says, I can't do it while running and I can't do this. But remember, when you are in ketosis, you have a glycerol that turns into glucose. So your body is burning, especially if you have fats. So when you intake an increase in healthy fats through your diet, when that metabolizes, you have this glycerol. That glycerol becomes glucose. So there's some misinformation. People are getting a little crazy, like, oh, I tried ketosis and I couldn't run, I couldn't do this, I couldn't work out. The reality of it is you probably weren't in ketosis. So somehow, for whatever reason, you'd gotten out of ketosis. That's why you weren't able to run. This past weekend, boy, I'll tell you what, it was nice having the trip where I could fast. I fasted, on average between my last meal being about 7 o'clock at night and the next morning, not eating until lunchtime. You do the math. That's a good 12, 15 hours depending on the day. And then would get anywhere between 2,000 and 2,400 calories between 12 and 7. Okay, and not having this ravaging, just like stomach hunger that I normally get. Still worked out, still did everything I needed to do. I got some runs in, and so again, I'm gonna say that the Keto OS Max is legit at this point, but if it's an N of 1, you got to try it, see what it's like. My wife hates the Maui Punch. I did try the Swiss Cocoa yesterday. My buddy who's selling this stuff gave me a sample. Pretty solid, okay? It's pretty solid. Besides chocolate, you never know, hit or miss, but pretty solid. That's where we'll leave it at that. If you're considering it, you got to make sure though, okay, that you ease into it, that you know what you're doing. Leave questions, comments, send me those emails. I'll be happy to help you go through this. Again, N of 1 for 2.5, 3 week period. Is it enough to convince everybody that you should do this? Yeah, probably not. Who knows? All right, we'll see. Next one is the Wim Hof breathing. Give you the update on that. Still doing the Wim Hof exercises. The lung capacity, I'm noticing that I'm able to hold my breath longer. So what does that equate to functionally? Well, I don't know. All right, I guess maybe going anaerobic. I don't go anaerobic really with running anymore. So I don't know if that will help. I'd be interested to know if anybody else has been doing it and see if you've had any instances where you were able to go anaerobic longer and have that carry over. I do understand that that would be one benefit. Cold exposure, obviously, if you're able to, because of that breathing, you also use cold exposure. That would be able to sustain colder temperatures and outside running and such. Again, another possible benefit. I enjoy it because I feel like it's a good stress reliever. Again, that another way for deep breathing activity with the mindset of reducing overall stress, muscle tension, and also increasing your body's ability to withstand cold exposure and from the website and from the readings and such to reduce your body's chances of getting sick and improving your immune health. Again, I'm not laying any claims on that one. Do this information research for yourself. Try it, see how it feels, see how you do getting sick. If you do not, then it is what it is. So, on to today's topic. What is metabolic syndrome? Well, metabolic syndrome is defined as increased abdominal mass, so overweight in the midsection. So it's midsection, okay? And 2 or more of the following: an increase in triglycerides over 150, a decrease in HDL or your good cholesterol in men lower than 40, women lower than 50, and or high blood pressure where you're 130 over 85 or above, so systolic, diastolic. And last but not least is your fasting glucose above 100. Now, that's an indicator that you've got some insulin deficiencies that maybe that your fasting glucose is sitting there. Now, what does metabolic syndrome actually mean? Metabolic syndrome literally means that your metabolism is so slow that these other things aren't functioning properly. Now, is it the chicken egg paradox? Okay, which came first? Is it because of this that you ended up with this metabolic syndrome, or is it because you were overweight, didn't exercise, whatever, that all of a sudden you've ended up with it? Well, we're still doing research on that to find out. But this is the thing I know, all right? So interval training, the HIIT stuff that you're seeing, the high intensity training that you're seeing all over the internet blasted, probably what made T25 and P90X and Insanity and all those things kind of really just kind of jump through the roof, is that they're easy to do, they hold you accountable, but also because they're metabolic, all right, if you will. That's where we're seeing the biggest issue, or the biggest way to decrease this metabolic syndrome is through this high intensity, short bursts. So think about it, if you're a runner and you're just starting off and you're saying, I'm not really wanting to race, but I want to increase my health. What would be the best way to do it? Well, we always talk about the base training, so you want to make sure that you've got this base of training, but as you progress on this curve and you've got 8, 12, 16 weeks of base training in, I would encourage you to increase to interval training 1 to 2 times a week, especially if you're concerned about weight loss, midsection area, you've had some high blood pressure issues, glucose issues, HDL issues, the triglyceride issues. If that's you, and you not necessarily haven't been diagnosed with metabolic syndrome, but you know that your weight's been creeping up on you, and you know that you're out of shape and that you're wanting to get back into it, that's where the interval work is going to be key. That's where you're going to see the biggest benefit by increasing your ability to kind of get into this, short bursts, high intensity. We're seeing the research is phenomenal for changing metabolic syndrome, because what happens is the weight around the midsection falls off, the HDL increases, so your good cholesterol, the glucose is getting pulled into the muscles and not sitting in the bloodstream. That's a key, huge one right there. Triglycerides, they're tough to measure, but I think those 2 things, especially the glucose, is a little bit easier to measure on your own. Definitely weight in the midsection, so if you're noticing that your pants are fitting better and that you have a little bit more energy and your metabolism seems like it's speeding up, chances are you're converting out of metabolic syndrome. It is what it is. So, questions on that, comments. Most of the stuff, they can put you on meds, they can do this stuff. This is where I think running is a huge key for this, especially because you don't need any videos, you don't need any training, per se. You get out, you can start off with 30 seconds, fast, 30 seconds slow, All right, so if you're questioning how would I increase my intervals, there's lots of resources out there. I'll be happy to set up a program for you. But you could start it off, almost what we call fartlek running, where you run for 30 seconds, and then 30 seconds slow, 30 seconds fast, 30 seconds slow. You could do it depending on what your distance was. If you're training for a race coming up, you could build that into the training program, saying, okay, I'm going to do quarters, or I'm going to do halves, or I'm going to do miles. All right, and then you're going to give yourself a self-allotted time for break, those sorts of things. Most people that are that into running, are more advanced folks, you're not going to have metabolic syndrome. It's just not going to happen. Most of the time, you can't eat enough to stay healthy. But anybody that's just starting off, for sure. All right, so 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off is a really good way to start off into interval training to build yourself up to a more advanced program. As I said, I'll be happy to talk to you about that, but that's it. So, episode 95, Brian Boyle here. Check out runpainless.com. Also, if you find some value in this, share this with your friends, your family, your training partners. But whatever you do, don't go hurting yourself to come back. I'll see you again tomorrow for Thursday, episode 96 of The Mesh Tongue. Today is episode 95. Have a great day, and I'll see you again tomorrow. All right.